Hey, it's Professor Jeffries, and this is my Psychology African Americans week 5, and we're going to look a little bit deeper at the Black family. The first video that you'll see is done by Janice Hale. Janice Hale has written 2 books. I read 2 of her books, and she's written many articles, done a lot of research on learning styles. I'll say she's one of the few scholars who've done research on Black children's learning style. Okay, most research on Black children are comparison studies, comparing white children with Black children, where she's looking at various other things, also teaching. Next, we'll talk about Robert Rosenthal. Robert Rosenthal was a professor at Harvard University, and he had 2 groups of students, 2 groups of graduate students, 2 groups of rats. One group of graduate students, brilliant rats, I'm going to give you the semester and see what happens. Another group, well, these some, dumb rats, do what you can with them. At the end of the quarter, brilliant rats are climbing ladders, operating elevators, playing basketball. The dumb rats just learn how to pull a bar. What it shows is that teacher expectation can influence one's learning. So let's talk about Janice Hale and putting it there in terms of the quality of teachers. She cites an example, Janice Hale cites an example in her video where you had one teacher had children writing M's all over the blackboard, on the paper, hundreds of times, where another teacher said Mickey Mouse, and then had them talk about each kid go around saying a sentence about Mickey Mouse. The teacher would write that sentence down and have the children copy that sentence. Okay, in terms of what we're talking about is teaching style, and what best teaching style can help enhance student learning. Next comes Barbara Sizemore. I always go back to her. She had a school in Pittsburgh, and this is back in maybe mid-'80s, early '90s. And these are children from low-income, single-parent African-American families. And these children were scoring higher on the math and reading comprehension scores than these kids in Pittsburgh School District and Pittsburgh private schools. I was had these kids who were, low-income, at-risk children scoring really high on the math and reading comprehension. And it's the way she set that school up. Anyway, she talks about her experiences when she was in college, but also the next one talks about her views of No Child Left Behind that George Bush started, in other words, and she'll talk about her opinion of that. And one thing she talks about, one issue is that they talk about the program, but then they didn't want to put the money up to make it successful. Then we go to Jawanza Kunjufu, and Kunjufu talks about how prison pathway, in other words, from the classroom to the prison type of situation that was talked about earlier. And he explains it, looks at ways that we could probably get around it. Okay, and his premise is that Black males, all this could be prevented if Black males could get the support that they need. And also, one of the things he talks about in terms of teaching is that white teachers oftentimes don't bond with Black children the way they bond with white children. And as a result, the Black child never really has the opportunity to fulfill his or her potential. That video is followed by bell hooks. Bell hooks, in my opinion, is one of the greatest social critics of our time. And I've read 7 of her books, and she's written more than that. And my favorite as a teacher was Teaching Transgression. But I think that most popular culture of people outside of the field of psychology would probably like Outlaw Culture. Outlaw Culture, that was one of the most popular ones. But my favorite was Teaching Transgression because I kind of identify with her, and in terms of being an African-American professor teaching in institutions that are predominantly white. I mean, she goes through a lot of the similar experiences that I went through. That's why I really identify with that book to a certain extent. But Bell Hooks talks about making that connection between white supremacy and racism in terms of white male patriarchy as opposed to racism by itself or white supremacy by itself. Okay, she really helped me make the connection between I'm being an African American male, and I'm also a feminist. Okay, and so she helped mold my views in terms of how to reconcile that. Okay, to a certain extent. Okay, and then next we'll have Dr. Henrik Clark. You saw him appear in some of the other videos. He's a historian, and he's doing a video with Professor Amos Wilson. Amos Wilson, I used one of his books, Develop the Psychology of the Black Child, which came out maybe in the late 70s, right when the first class I taught. Okay, and he's written several books, Understanding Black on Black Male Violence, Blueprint to Black Liberation. He's written several books. One of my favorite phrases of him is Amos Wilson is why are you talking about if you want to understand Black on Black violence, you must first understand white on black violence. I mean, what's the difference between going in and shooting somebody versus starving them to death? Okay, and this goes back to Dr. Alexander in terms of prisons being shut out of the job market, sits people up to where they feel they have to commit crimes to survive. And also Amos Wilson talks about how free are you? Okay, what is freedom? And he defines freedom as self-determination. And the problem in America in general is that African Americans are dependent on the people in the power structure for our very existence. I mean, you go to work, you go to a job. Okay, who writes that paycheck? Okay, you go to the grocery store. Who do you give that money to buy those groceries? Who eventually gets that money? Okay, so Amos will say, well, even though you say we're free, we're not truly free. But if you read his blueprints, Black Power, and some of the other books, you find, so in other words, encourage further reading with that. Okay. Then next we're going to focus on colorism. Colorism is actually maybe being bigger in India than it is in Africa, where lightening cream, people will put cream on their face to lighten their complexion. Okay, and the process get burns or have allergic reactions. Okay, those type of things. And colorism is basically goes back to the white supremacist system. White is good, black is evil. Okay, and so we'll just look in the mirror and I don't like myself, and society says I'm not good, so I'm gonna put some cream on. Okay, and so like I said, you see it really big in India in particular, and a lot of Southeast Asian countries, and even in Korea. There's certainly see a lot of bleaching cream. So it's really interesting to see more Asians buying bleaching cream than you do Africans to a certain extent, absolute numbers for sure. Okay, then there'll be a couple of videos on Black English, in other words, how we communicate with each other. Okay, one of the things, Black English is a combination of I'm communicating something, but I'm also hiding something. In other words, so the slaves could talk to each other out in the fields, and the master of the plantation owners would have no idea what they're talking about. Okay, and I can even do that on the bus today. I will walk on the bus and talk to another black person. All the other people in the room, they won't know what I'm talking about. Other black people can hear me and know what I'm talking about. That's Black English, and they'll look at that, and then also from there, code switching. To survive in the professional world, code switching is almost necessary. It's almost that's just a survival tool. In other words, you act one way and when you're around white folks in public, you act the other way when you're around brothers or at home. Okay, and so that kind of brings you into the video. And then there also some other videos dealing with some contemporary issues. All right, so the next time we'll talk about the Black family.